All right, we're still in chapter 11 of our materials, learning about recording statutes and title examination. So now we're going to look at title examination in part two. So we keep talking about ownership in property, and we talked about how we transfer that ownership through a deed. We know that ownership is title and title is ownership. We learned about the requirements of a deed, and we talked about recording. And then in part one, we looked at the recording statutes in order to determine who owns Sesame Street when we have two or more conflicting claims of ownership. So you learned all about the recording jurisdictions, race notice, the types of notice, record, actual, and inquiry, and you learned what a bona fide purchaser was. So now we're going to talk about title examination, because title examination is sort of tied to all those things, because that's how you find out about these other interests is through title examination. You go to the record and you look. So what is a title examination? Well, it's anytime you investigate the title of a property or search somehow for the title of the property. And basically you're trying to ascertain the history of the title and whether or not you know uh, the current person has good title and what condition it is. So of course when we're talking about title, we're talking about ownership. So anytime you're talking about title examination, you're talking about ownership examination, looking at the ownership, seeing what kind of interests are out there on a piece of property, looking for liens, things like that. So when you do a title examination, you're researching what they call the chain of title. And this is just the ownership history of a piece of land from the present owner all the way back to the first owner. So this just means you start with today, and then you just work your way back from one owner to the next until you get back as far as you can. Normally it goes back to the state or the United States or something like that. And so you can only go back so far to when the jurisdiction was created, right? So if you are searching Texas, you're going to get all the way back to like 1836 when Texas was its own country. So where do you do a title examination? Well, in Texas, we use the county clerk to record our documents. So that's where you do your title examination, is at the county clerk's office. So you can go down to the clerk's office physically, right? You can visit an actual building, an actual office, and go check out the records in person. So if you wanted to go to Harris County, we have ours in the third floor of the civil courthouse. So you can just go downtown, park, walk over here to the courthouse, go to the third floor, walk right into the county clerk's office. That's where you record the documents. You take your documents and drop them off to be recorded. It's also where you'll search the records. And each county is going to be a little bit different. Harris is a big county, so we got a big courthouse. But if you go to someplace like Polk County, Texas, they have a very tiny courthouse and a very tiny room, and so it's a little bit different. But you still do the same thing. They still have the same types of records, and they're sort of set up the same way. So somewhere inside, you'll have some computers that you can search on, because nowadays, right, we're in 2017 where We almost have robots now that exist. So everything is electronic, right? So back in the 2000s, 90s, things started going electronic, right? You could scan things, you could save them to computers. So that's what most counties do now is electronic recording. So you have computers that you can use to search, but some records are older, and if you want to look at them, you might go to microfilm or microfiche, something like that. And of course, the original records are in what they call deed books, or excuse me, deed books. They also had mortgage books. They used to be kind of separated. You'd have deeds in one book and mortgages and stuff in another. But uh, then some counties combine them and only have one set of books. So it really depends on the county how they had it set up. But these things they call deed books are literally books full of deeds and other instruments related to real property. And so you have these old books where the very first records are kept. Sometimes you can get these records, electronic. The county has gone in and scanned all these old books and put them in a electronic format. But some counties haven't got that advanced or gone that far back yet, and so you still have to go to these books. And so you have the book and page number. So you'll get a book and page number. You'll find the book. You turn to the page number, and there's the deed, that you're looking for. So that's where to conduct a title search, right? You can go to the uh, physically to the county clerk or recorder's office and look. But like I said, we are in the information age. Technology's at our fingertips. We carry around in our pockets, and so a lot of the times we can do a title search from the comfort of your home or office, because many counties have the databases free online. Some counties have it where you have to go through a third-party vendor and pay for the service. Then there are some counties that just aren't online at all. Those are few and far between these days, but they do exist because some places are just um, small and old school and don't have the money to do it. So when you do a title search, everything is set up by the index, and that's called the grantee grantor index. And we've seen grantor grantee before when we talk about deeds. We're talking about the transfer of property from one person to the other. But in the title search context, um, grantor grantee takes on a little bit broader meaning. Um, it still means transfer or and transfer, and the one who receives, right? Someone's giving and someone's taking, but it's a little bit broader. It's not necessarily just in the deed context. It's all of the documents that use the grantor grantee index. So you will need to watch part 3 of chapter 11, and I'll show you what the index looks like and kind of how it works. So um, more on that in part 3. And so the index basically is just the list, right? You put in a name, and then it pulls up documents and gives you all the information. All right, so now we're going to talk about title insurance real quickly, because title insurance is tied to title examination, because normally title companies are the ones who are doing the title examination. So title insurance, well, we know there's many kinds of insurance out there, right? I'm sure most of you have most of these types of insurance, right? So if you own a home, you probably have a homeowner's insurance policy. And this protects against things like theft, right? So if someone breaks in, kicks in your front door and comes in and rips your flat screen TVs off the wall and, breaks a bunch of dishes and steals some jewelry, file a claim on your homeowner's insurance policy. Or if a big windstorm or hurricane, something comes through and blows your roof off, it's going to be your homeowner's insurance policy. All right, and they're going to pay to fix your roof and get you made whole again. And of course, if it burns down, right? Remember, your baby is cooking grease or bacon and starts a grease fire, and that's going to be, on your homeowner's insurance policy. So we have, insurance to protect our home against loss or damage, right? We may also have flood insurance for our home, and is usually a separate policy. But down here in the South, we flood quite a bit, and of course, this protects you if you have a Katrina type situation. Automobile insurance, right? If you drive a car, the law says you need to have insurance. At least it does in the state of Texas. I'm sure in every other state you're required to have insurance and at least liability insurance, right? So liability is when you hit somebody else and you are liable for their damage. That's like usually the bare minimum you can carry is liability. And that just means you pay if you mess up somebody else's stuff. You mess up your own stuff, yeah, you're up a creek without a paddle because you only have liability. If you want your own stuff to be paid for, then you need to have the other coverages, right? Like comprehensive. And this is if someone steals your car or tries to break in, it's a comprehensive claim. Or if you take your Ferrari and smash it into a light pole and cut it in half, that's going to be a collision claim. All right, so those are different types of coverages under automobile insurance policy. If you have all three, that's normally what they call full coverage insurance. All right, so health insurance. We're all now required to have health insurance by law, I suppose. If you're lucky enough, you might have it through your job. If not, then you might have to look at other avenues to get it. But health insurance, right? You have insurance that protects our health against loss and damage, right? If we get sick, we can go to the doctor. If we need, break something, we can have it mended. If we need a surgery, we can do that. And we have life insurance, right? We can insure against death, right? We're all going to die. There's no one, I don't think, that lives forever. Who knows? I don't know everybody in the world. Uh, but most people, I'm going to say, are going to die. So you can insure against that in case you die too soon, right? So you can buy life insurance, and this will pay somebody a substantial amount of money in the event of your death. Then we have things like professional liability insurance that doctors and lawyers have, right, in the event of malpractice, right? So if the doctor leaves some scissors in you when he's performing one of those surgeries you got under your health insurance policy, uh, then once you realize that, hey, I have this pair of scissors that's stabbing my insides, I need to have another surgery to have them removed, you can sue this doctor. If you have professional liability insurance, then they'll pay you for your damage. And you can insure all kinds of things, right? You can have insurance for almost anything in the world. For example, one of my favorite all-time football players, Troy Polamalu, at one time was doing Head and Shoulders commercials, and they had a thing where he had his hair insured for $1 million in case anything happened to his hair, because he's famous for those beautiful locks, hanging out of his helmet as he's running sideline to sideline, making a menace of himself. So you can insure all kinds of things, and there's all kinds of insurance out there to protect you from damage, to protect you from loss. So it makes sense that you'd have title insurance, right? Your ownership. So you can insure against a loss or damage of your ownership in property. Right, so you can buy title insurance, which is insured against the risk that the title to your property is defective or there's adverse claims. Right, if someone else comes along and says they're the owner of the property, uh, you can get this insurance to defend you in a lawsuit. Or if it's found out that no, you don't have good title, that person is the owner, then you can get paid for your loss because you lost out on the property. So you can get insurance against um, your title being defective or not what you thought it was. But title insurance is a little bit different than all those other insurances, right? So health insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance, professional liability insurance, those are all uh, bought for a term. So 1 month at a time, or 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time, 1 year at a time. They're all periodic and only last for a certain term. But title insurance, you buy it and it lasts as long as you're the owner of that property. So kind of hand in hand with that is that all those other types of insurance, the health, the car, professional liability, right? So it's only for a term, 6 months or a year. So that means every 6 months or a year, you have to renew it and pay again and pay again and pay again. With title insurance, you only have to buy it once when you buy the property, and then it lasts so long as you're the owner. And then lastly, the other types of insurances are all based on statistics, right? These actuary tables. You're a male under 25, you're more riskier than, a female that's over 40, right? So you're a statistic in with those other types of insurance. But in title insurance, they really just look at the title. You go back and look at the record and you evaluate your risk by what you find. So those are a couple differences between regular insurance and title insurance. So title insurance is regulated by the states. In Texas is the Texas Department of Insurance. It's issued through title companies. They basically provide the same service, but you'll get different coverages, level of coverages, right? So some may go, up to $10 million properties, while some only go up to $500,000 properties or something like that. Uh, these two, Lanier and Old Republic, I work with those two title companies quite a bit in my job. There are a million different title companies. They're just, at least in Texas, there are. I know that. I pass a couple of them just on my way to work, driving down the street. So um, basically the same type of coverages, but you'll get different levels of customer service and different levels of coverages on policy amounts. They'll have higher limits one place than the other. All right, so things to take away. Know what a title examination is, a title search. Know what we're talking about when we say chain of title. Know what title insurance is, um, and then be familiar with the grantor grantee index. And if you want more details on the grantor grantee index, watch part 3.